What's up, guys? It's your Average Joe with Average Joe Raids. Today we're going to talk about Hydra. We're going to go ahead and break down all of the heads this rotation so you can get a better understanding of what's going on during this chaotic game mode. And hopefully that can help you do more damage, get better rewards, and get yourself closer to getting Mithrala. So let's jump in and take a look at what the heads do this rotation, Rotation 6. We're going to pull up the Hell Hades website. I use this for a lot of things. Highly recommend it. Four heads we're looking at. Head of Torment. We've got the Head of Mischief. We've got the Head of Wrath. And we've got the Head of Decay. So we're going to look at the abilities on each of those, and we're going to go ahead and make a list of the needs and wants that you should get for this Hydra rotation. What you want your champions to cover so that you can stay alive longer and do the most damage possible. So let's go ahead and look. Head of Torment, the first one, this is the Fear head. This is the head that puts fears on you. So it's A1, attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a fear debuff for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be blocked or resisted. After the first attack, attacks all enemies under fear or true fear. So it's going to place a fear, 50% chance. Going to place a fear. It's also going to attack all the enemies under a fear. So it's kind of like a Mashald where he attacks everyone under a leech, but this head is doing it under fear. A2 attacks all enemies. Damage increases by 25% for each debuff an enemy is under. So there we go right here. For each debuff an enemy is under, we are going to add Cleanse to the list here. So if we're cleansing so that we don't have debuffs on, it's going to reduce the amount of damage that this head does. His passive, when attacked by enemies not under a Perfect Veil buff, places a True Fear debuff on them for 1 turn. This debuff cannot be blocked or resisted. And then all this stuff is just standard for every head. Reduce damage to poison, reduce damage to everything, immune to everything, all that stuff. So the second thing we want is a Perfect Veil. And that's going to prevent us from being feared when we attack this head. Alternatively, you can bring Shamel. Inquisitor Shamel. And he is going to, every time a teammate gets feared, he's going to cleanse it and then counterattack the person who's fearing them. So you can either run somebody with a Perfect Veil, or you can run Inquisitor Shamel. So that's the things that you need to counter the Head of Torment, which is the head that places fears on you. The next head we're looking at is Head of Mischief. This is the head that steals your buffs and spreads them around to all of the heads. So let's look at his A1. Attacks the enemy with the most buffs, steals all the buffs from the target, and steals 50% of the target's turn meter. Applies a buff spread effect, taking all buffs from this head and placing them on all heads. Changes the duration of all spread buffs to 2 turns. That's his A2. So he's spreading all the buffs that he steals. His passive ability has a 75% chance of redirecting an enemy attack onto another random head. Will not occur if this head is under a Hex debuff. So the things we need to counteract this head would be a champ who has more buffs than everyone else and high resistance. So we'll say high resistance and additional buff, or slow. They could be slower so that their buffs stay on longer than everyone else. We also could use a Hex debuff, which is going to not redirect attacks to him, so that if he swallows somebody and you want to attack him to break that out, if he has a Hex on him, you can attack him and make sure that those attacks place. So those are the 2 things that are crucial to countering this head. The big one being, if you can get someone with an additional buff, like maybe a Lord Champfort who has a shield on him, if you don't bring in anyone else who has shields, then Head of Mischief is going to go after your Lord Champfort. And if you build him with high resistance, he's going to resist that buff steal, which then means Head of Mischief has no buffs to spread around. Alternatively, you could place out a block buffs, and as long as it's up all the time, you're not going to have any buffs that are getting on the heads. So we could say here, block buffs instead. And block buffs is going to be useful on a couple other heads that we look at in a bit. Our next head is Head of Wrath. His A1 attacks all enemies, places a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. This is another instance where our cleanse from our head of, our fear head, I forget the names, our fear head, Head of Torment, is would be useful for him. It's also going to be useful for Head of Wrath here. Passive effect. This is the counter that Head of Wrath has. This would be where all of a sudden Head of Wrath lashes out at you and you're losing tons of health. You have no idea why. This is why. He has a vengeance counter, which is kind of like his anger counter. Each enemy hit received increases the vengeance counter by 1. Every time you hit him, it increases. Whenever the vengeance counter reaches 15, places a vengeance buff, a block debuffs buff, and a 15% reflect damage buff on this head for 1 turn. Then attacks all enemies. I don't know for sure if you have block buffs up. I believe vengeance can't be blocked, so the vengeance buff goes up, but block debuffs and reflect damage do get blocked, I believe. And then when he's under that vengeance buff, it won't increase the vengeance timer as you're hitting him. So attacks all enemies, his A2, places a provoke debuff for 1 turn, also places a 50% increase attack buff on this head for 3 turns. So his provoke, it's going to increase his vengeance counter. His increase attack, hopefully we can block with this block buffs here. And that's going to significantly decrease the amount of damage he's putting out. And if you have a champion that can do a decrease attack, it's actually going to change it even that much more. Think of it as 150% with his increase attack. If he doesn't get increase attack and you do decrease attack, he's only doing 50% attack damage. So that changes it to 1/3 of the damage that he would normally do. So for Head of Wrath, we're going to say decrease attack here. And then his passive, this is everything that everyone else has, except he does a little bit extra. He takes some AoE damage away. And Head of Decay, possibly my most frustrating head. He's the head that cleanses everything, all of your debuffs from the heads. So his A1, and this is he has a couple things that I never really realized until I started digging into this kit. Attacks the enemy with the lowest HP, places a 100% heal reduction buff for 2 turns. So again, our cleanse is going to come in handy here. A2 removes all debuffs from all heads, then fills the turn meters of all heads by 30%. So this is his AoE cleanse, his A2. A3, Rotten Ward, removes all debuffs from the head with the lowest HP. I always thought it was from the head with the most debuffs, but it's actually from the lowest HP. Then places a life barrier buff on them for 4 turns. The life barrier buff cannot be removed, and I don't believe you can block it with block buffs. And so then this is also whenever an enemy champion is healed, so whenever we heal ourselves, it decreases our max HP by 15% of the value healed. So if you heal yourself, let's say you got a big Vrask, and you heal yourself for 80,000, let's see what that looks like. You've got Vrask healing, he has 80,000 HP, he heals for 10% of his health every hit, so he heals for 8,000 damage, and 15% of that would be 1,200. So every time Vrask heals, he's reducing your max HP by 1,200, all the way down to up to 75% of their max HP. So if you, let's say all your nukers have 40,000 health if you're starting them out with that, it's going to slowly start chipping away. 10 hits from Vrask, and all of a sudden you only have 75% of your max HP left. Also decreases damage from poisons and all the rest. So we'd look at our list here. A Cleanse, a Perfect Veil, or Inquisitor Shamel. That pretty much negates the Head of Torment, the Fear Head. High Resistance, an additional buff, or a slow champion with high resistance, or block buffs, possibly both. and a hex debuff is going to mitigate Head of Mischief, the head that steals all of your buffs and spreads them. Head of Wrath just does a ton of damage. We want to decrease attack out for him. We also want to either block this increased attack or strip it. And then Head of Decay, we just want to be cognizant and know when his cleanses are going out so that we can put up our debuffs around those so that our debuffs are up, have the most uptime as possible. So other things that are really helpful in Hydra, increased speed on our team, increased defense, strengthen, and so you look at this this head right here. Whenever a champion is healed, decreases their max HP. What does that mean? That means instead of trying to overheal their damage, it would actually be better if we could increase our defense and strengthen so that we can mitigate the damage that's coming to us. And then if you have one champion, like Ursala is a great champion here, increase defense, strengthen, a full team revive, you throw her in some regen gear to keep herself alive, and then if everyone else dies, her team revive is going to bring everyone back up, give them the damage mitigation. You can start to heal then, and eventually you're going to get down to just 75% of your max HP that you can top out at. But these here, increase defense and strengthen, the damage mitigation they bring is going to be huge. So let's go into the game. This is our thing. These are the things we want here. This is kind of a random team that I threw together. We've got decreased speed is also something that's great. The only thing we don't have across these champions, I believe, is going to be the Perfect Veil or Inquisitor Shamal, so we are going to get feared. But I just wanted to slowly go through a little bit of a run, and we can break down what each head's doing so that hopefully you can understand how to make your team work around the heads and get the highest chest possible for these rewards. So Venus here, we have an AoE HP burn, an AoE weaken and decrease defense. Ursala, AoE strengthen, increase defense, also a AoE decrease attack, so she does a lot for your team. Ursala is great for Hydra. Hakorn Smash Lord, he's going to be our cleanser, and he also does a bit of a heal. We've got Umbral, who I haven't leveled up yet, but she does block buffs, and she has it on a 3-turn cooldown for 3 turns. So she is a great champion for blocking buffs if you have her. I just pulled Mashald. Check out my other video from yesterday. He was my pull for the double legendary event, and I immediately leveled him up to try to get my Undead Horde faction finished. So he's going to give us increased speed, and then I have Mother Cybele in a Guardian set to mitigate some more damage, and she's also going to give us decreased speed and a Revive on Death. So let's check out some of this key. We'll go for a little bit and just kind of break down what each head is doing so that you can see it in live action. So AoE HP burn is going to do a lot of damage. So right now I'm going to do the decreased defense and weaken in hopes that this Head of Decay uses his AoE cleanse to take it off. So then I can do my AoE HP burn, and it'll leave it on so that we're doing damage with burns. I'm gonna give us increased speed here from Mashal. Do a big hit on the cleansing head because I like to get rid of him as soon as I can. We're gonna leave this so that we have, it's a cleanse, but it also is a block buffs, block debuffs. So we're gonna put up a block debuffs even though we don't need the cleanse yet, and also give us a strengthen and increase defense, and we'll try to get some decreased speeds out here. And I'm going to this is where I'm not exactly sure. Do we want to throw out the block buffs before the AoE cleanse, I am going to say yes, and we'll take a gamble. And this is... Okay, so there, all our buffs just got stolen from Mashal because he had those 2 extra heal buffs on. And so now, in our head of decay here did his AoE cleanse. Our head of torment used his attack all enemies, damage increase for each debuff we're under. We weren't under any debuffs at that time, so he didn't do a ton of damage. Head of Wrath here attacked all of us, placed a provoke for 1 turn, and put an increased attack on him. However, we were not provoked because we had block debuffs on us, except for Mashal because his buffs were all stolen. So this is a really bad situation because now this Hydra head is going to spread all of these buffs, and he has full turn meter to do it right now. So I think we probably should have put the block buffs on from Umbral Enchantress. We're going to go ahead and AoE HP burn. Didn't get a lot out there. Yep, and so now all of these heads have all of these buffs. The worst buff actually is the block debuffs, because now we can't do anything to any of these heads. So let's regroup. We'll try to put out Umbral Enchantress's block buffs, her first move out, and we'll see how that impacts it. So we've got this to try to... We're basically baiting Head of Decay's full team cleanse here. Give us our increased speed. Give us our block debuffs. And then give us... I'm going to put out the decrease attack, so that when Head of Wrath goes, he's not smacking us as much. And we're going to give a block buffs here. So there, Head of Mischief went to steal our buffs, and he didn't get anything because our block buffs was out. And then afterwards, Head of Decay here did the full team cleanse, took off all the debuffs. Head of Torment did his attack all enemies and the damage increase for all the debuffs we are under, which we were not under any. And then also on his attack, his passive, well, we got feared from him. And then Head of Mischief is about to go again. He doesn't have any buffs now, but he's gonna steal buffs. Well, he stole Mashal buffs, but he wasn't able to put them on because he had block buffs on. And Head of Wrath has not gone yet, and he no longer has decreased attack. So we get the AoE HP burnout. Just gonna do some HP damage from Hakorn. We'll put up Strengthen, and she got feared when she went to use that. Try to get some decreased speeds out. Also feared. So you can see here, fear is the big thing. We probably won't ever use Umbral's A3. We're just going to be using her A1 and then cycling into her A2. So the bad thing, if you don't have a Perfect Veil or a Shamal, is anyone that does AoE hits is also going to hit the Spearhead and get feared every single time. If you're not feared, or if you happen to, win the 50-50 on being feared during a move, you can see we just got our buff stolen again, and now a lot of these heads have block debuffs, so that's not good. So we're just trying to get some... I'm going to put increased defense and revive on death on us. Who did we lose over here? Umbral, which is not shocking. She's only level 50. She's not even 6-starred. We still have 3 heads with block buffs up. Or block debuffs, I'm sorry. So we don't want to use our decrease attack yet. Now we've only got 2 heads with that. So I'm going to give us increased speed. And I don't want to give Mashald his continuous heal, because then he's just going to steal it right now, since we don't have Umbral Enchantress up. So on his A1, when he hits everyone with leeches, that means we might as well not attack somebody with leech. We'll attack the Head of Torment over here. And let's take Corn's health, because Cybele will put some heals on her. This could be really bad if Head of Mischief steals Cybele's buffs because she has a block damage on. Get some decreased attack out. And Head of Wrath then just hit his Vengeance timer. So now his Vengeance buff is up, which is an unremovable buff. So this run didn't go super well. I think it's mismanagement of the block buffs, so that buffs are getting onto these heads and then also being feared because we don't have a perfect Veil or a Shamal. So you can see just how crucial those 2 points are to a run. Sometimes instead of doing block buffs, I like to use a champion like Seer or Madame Saris to do remove buffs instead. That way you're not having to worry about keeping block buffs up while you have Head of Decay constantly cleansing that block buff's debuff. So you could use somebody that removes buffs from the enemy heads. Madame Saris, Seer, I think, oh shoot, the champion from Doom Tower normal that you can get also does that. I can find her name. I don't have her yet, which is why I'm not sure of her name. Rianne the Conjurer, I believe she removes buffs. So that's kind of an insight of how these heads are working, what you need to bring in to be able to have a successful key. And this is just more of an informational video. I'm going to try to put out some more videos with team comps, focusing on Hydra normal right now, how people who are maybe in the mid game can really start to get into Hydra and get just a couple of those chests, start working on their Mithrala fragments, and hopefully really start to understand this game mode a little more. So let me know in the comments below, how have your Hydra runs been going? What are your frustration points with it? Is there anything you like about it? And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you. See you later.